I do want to talk about arenas. So the Suns, let's put the Suns debate behind us because the Arizona Diamondbacks could leave Chase Field in 3 years on one of your watches. What are your principles? What would you do to keep the Diamondbacks here? Or would you be okay if they left and moved, say, up north to the reservation where they already have a spring training facility?
I want Chase Field to stay thriving in the home of the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's a facility operated by the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, so they are the first line to be making a decision.
The D-backs have spoke with Mayor Greg Stanton about some kind of authority to run this whole downtown sports complex. So Phoenix has had a role in it, and the D-backs have looked to the city for help.
And at the time, I publicly stated that I would not support using additional city tax dollars. I believe that professional sports are among the most profitable enterprises out there, and they should pay for their own buildings.
So is that your line in the sand? No city tax dollars, period.
I'm there to help with private financing. I will absolutely meet with anyone who might be willing to invest and say, downtown Phoenix is the place you want to be. We'd encourage you to invest. There have been some exciting deals in other community where they've done development around the facility that's helped pay for it. So the city's portion would be trying to grant entitlements and support that additional development to bring private sector dollars.
Okay, and Danny Valenzuela, I have a specific question for you. You support the Suns deal, correct?
The city's deal.
The city's deal with the Suns.
It's a city-owned arena. It's a city-owned arena. This is not the Phoenix Suns arena. It's a city-owned arena. Listen, if this was a conversation about a new build arena or sports stadium, there is no separation here. We should not be building a new arena. That has never been the conversation at Phoenix City Hall. This is a city-owned arena. It has been since its inception. The Sports Facilities Fund, which was created, is to pay for that arena, to keep it going. There's $182 million.
I hate to cut you off. I want to move it ahead to the D-backs. What would you support for the D-backs to keep them here?
The D-backs, that is in a county island that the Board of Supervisors needs to work through that deal. What I will tell you, Bram, is, listen, they didn't.
They're going to come to you for help.
Well,
you know they are.
I agree, but this is what this is the point here. The vision was not there, frankly, for the stadium the way it was with the arena. They don't have a sports facilities fund. That's a mess, frankly. Okay. What I will tell you is, at the very least, unlike Kate, I'm not a line in the sand. I'm not an all or nothing type of candidate, because that's not how local government is.
So all options, okay?
No, absolutely not.
What's not okay?
Well, Bram, first we have to have a conversation. I'm the candidate who's willing to actually sit down and have a conversation. If everyone agreed with Ms. Gallego on the city-owned arena, we would be losing out on $182 million economic impact annually, and we would have visualize Veterans Memorial Coliseum in downtown Phoenix.
Here's what's interesting. Christine Mackey, the city's economic development director, said, from an economic standpoint, the arena is negligible. You could probably make more money putting offices and retail there, couldn't you?
No, no, we can't. $182 million capital economic impact in that arena. Talk to the restaurant owners, talk to the bar owners, talk to the students who are going to school downtown. And again, you're talking about repurposing an arena. What does that cost us? Especially if we're going to deplete that sports facilities fund on something else.
Got to end it there. This discussion could take up an entire show. When we come back, is this the end of the line for light rail? Stay with us.